sometimes she has a hard time logging in. So if she she's just on the phone, can you upgrade her to a panelist?
Yes.
Thank you.
And the meeting will be live in about 1 minute, and it'll be on channel 10 in 2 minutes.
Hey, Brian, this is John. We actually will need you all's assistance on the 10th as well.
Okay.
For our board work session. It's at 5 o'clock.
Yep, that's what Davinia told me.
The 10th and the 17th.
10th and the 17th.
17.
Yes, the 17th is the annual plan hearing, and I think it's going to be a lot of community engagement on that one.
So John, you want Brian and Joe to help with the 17th also?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, we'll do it.
Thank you.
Thanks for telling us, John.
Let's see. Does anyone see Commissioner Slaughter is texting that, whoops, hold on, I just lost the text. She's saying that she's been trying to get in the meeting.
We just resent the invitation to her.
Oh, good. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Yep.
Because even if she'd be on mute, I would think we'd see a phone number showing up in the
Yeah, I don't see her at this point.
okay.
Can you see Brian? Can you see her calling?
I don't see any phone numbers at this time. Now I see one. And it just disappeared. Unless, yeah, there was a number there briefly and then it went away.
All right. I'll check in on her. It's 6:01. We'll take maybe 2 more minutes to see if we can help Miss Slaughter connect. See if she writes back. I know she's had trouble connecting to these meetings in the past.
Betsy, could you send me her number via chat so I can be on the lookout for it?
Yes, good idea. Hold on 1 second.
Okay, I do see that phone number.
Oh, yeah, I see her in the attendees. Okay.
And as an attendee, what I can do is enable her telephone connection.
Hello?
Hey, can you hear us?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Slaughter.
Great.
Yay!
Yay.
Caroline?
Yeah,
got-
hi. How's everyone?
Great.
All right, how are you?
Pretty good. Pretty good. Not feeling too well, but I guess what was expected.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
You think you could rename her so she won't have her personal number on there?
It doesn't always cooperate with us on that, but I will try.
All right. Why don't we go ahead and get started? Maybe we'll have more people to join us. Hi, Lisa. Okay. I call to order this meeting of the Charlottesville Redevelopment and Housing Authority Board of Commissioners virtual board meeting Monday, November 23rd, 2020 at 6 p.m. And let me read. And we are able to meet due to Governor Northam's Executive Order EO 53 restricting public gatherings of greater than 10 persons. Accordingly, Code 2.2-3708.2A3 permits public bodies to meet electronically to discuss business required or necessary to operation of the public body in discharge of its lawful purposes, duties, and responsibilities in times of emergencies and to address COVID-19. Therefore, this meeting is being held electronically pursuant to Virginia law because the COVID-19 pandemic makes it impractical and unsafe to assemble a quorum physically in a single location. All right. Oh, you changed her name. That's great. Is Leslie on here? Leslie, would you like to do the roll call?
I think she's having audio issues. So I can do it.
Thank you.
Commissioner Goldblatt,
Present.
Commissioner Osteen,
Here.
Commissioner Green,
Here.
Commissioner Slaughter,
Here.
Commissioner Dr. Henry, Commissioner Mayor Walker, Chair Rucker.
Here, thank you. So we have a quorum. Let's have a moment of silence to prepare for the work. Okay. And now, sorry, I was hearing. And now just announcements, meeting dates, reminders while people are still with us in case the meeting goes late. We have safety meetings every other Tuesday. The next one is tomorrow at 6 p.m. Redevelopment meetings are every Thursday at 2:30 p.m., although this week that won't be happening for the Thanksgiving holiday. And then we are not going to have our regular December board meeting. I believe it would have been for 28th, which is probably not great for everyone. Instead, we're going to do 2 work sessions in December. The first one is Thursday, December 10th at 5 p.m. Talking about a board finance training, I think with some focus on LIHTC financing. Okay. And then Thursday, December 7th, we'll do the public hearing and the for the annual plan. Does anyone else have any just general announcements they want to share at this time? Okay. So let's move to, did I hear someone? No, okay. Let's move to public comments. And let's,
Good evening, Housing Authority Board of Commissioners. This is Brandon Collins. I'm a staff member of the Public Housing Association of Residents, FAR. FAR is the Resident Council and Resident Advisory Board for Public Housing in Charlottesville. And I just actually wanted to take a brief moment to explain the difference. Resident Council is governed under Regulation 964, and it regards tenant participation in activities of the Housing Authority. It's a really great policy, and establishes that residents can form resident councils, and Housing Authority work with them and should provide a meager amount of funding for their activities. Resident Advisory Board, the reason I wanted to bring this up is because Resident Advisory Board actually is a little broader, a body that relates to a housing authority, and it's under a separate regulation, particularly as it relates to the annual plan, which you are in the middle of working on, and we really appreciate the connection you've had with us working through that, and I think we're going to have even more conversations with residents and FAR and Housing Authority on the annual plan. But that is kind of what gives FAR the ability to represent somewhat Section 8, basically, and other matters of the Housing Authority. So just want to put that out there. We are increased attention to safety and security in public housing neighborhoods. We appreciate the hard meeting that was had the other day, and just want to reiterate our support for a collaboration between FAR, residents, and the Housing Authority to address what is crisis. I think it's in everyone's vision that we don't establish a police state in public housing, and I think it's really important to recognize when Mr. Sales presents the recommendations to the Safety Committee tomorrow, that was a collaborative effort, and I think you will find that there's a whole host of things in there that aren't related to cops, that aren't related to evicting people. Although there is a very clear, distinct cry from residents for greater lease enforcement, greater attention from the police. There is a reason why in the Greenbrier neighborhood, you don't see people in crowds of 100 people in the streets gambling and potentially brandishing firearms. Because if that behavior was going on in the Greenbrier neighborhood, there would be a response. It is Housing Authority's responsibility to enforce its lease and keep its residents. I think residents have been very clear on what it is they expect in the short term. And I think we're all ready to work towards a better solution to these issues of crime and safety, given that we live in a society that is unjust and unfair. And we can all work towards making a more just society and work towards community building and a sense of community and having eviction prevention and having community responses to crime and safety in the community. So that's it for now, and hope you have a great meeting.
thank you, Brandon. The others? I think as most of Mr. Collins' comments or FAR's comments were about safety, we will, just so everyone knows, we will be following up with a safety committee update. So that might be the best place to talk about recent meeting and what's coming up tomorrow. If that's okay with everyone. Okay. Next, we have any updates from commissioners, and then we have the approval of minutes. Okay. And I guess we could do updates from work sessions, and our work session was mainly going over the new admin plan and the annual plan. And so I think we'll probably hear a little bit about those, or at least an update, maybe with Mr. Sales or Miss Glenn Matthews' report, just to hear how the public comment period has been going for the annual plan. Okay, so let's do approval of minutes. We have 2 months we have to go through. We have Monday, September 28th meeting and Monday, October 26th meeting. Oh, and there's Dr. Henry, yay. Hi, Dr. Henry.
Hi, y'all. I move to approve the minute. I don't know if I can do both, but I move to approve the minutes from September 28th. But if I can do both, and I also move to approve the minutes from October 26th.
I believe we can do both. Mr. Oberg's on here, so he'll
second.
All right, all those in favor? We have to do the roll call vote again. Because we're in the online meeting.
Do the roll call.
Thank you.
Commissioner Slaughter,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblatt,
Yes.
Commissioner Osteen,
Yes.
Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Dr. Henry,
Yep.
Commissioner Mayor Walker,
Yes.
Chair Rucker.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Wonderful. All right, our next on our agenda is Board of Commissioners election. And this is something that I think typically is done in July, probably because we are getting used to living in virtual meetings. It didn't happen. We didn't have the same kind of transition for the new board members as, seeing them in person. So we need to name, I guess they call it officers of the board. Well, I don't know how many I've had, 4 or 5 years now. I haven't noticed that these titles definitely define what people are doing. We could do more of that, but honestly, there seems to be a bit of just having titles. The one that seems to be most, I would say, important, or I don't mean to say important, but that actually has some kind of meaning, be probably the vice chair. There's a chair, vice chair, and treasurer. And in the past, the vice chair just steps in for meetings or to help with meetings, help run meetings, and potentially might be interested in being chair in the future. Getting some practice running the meetings. The treasurer obviously sounds like it should have more impact on the finances, but we don't actually officially do sign up on anything with these titles, really. It's I don't know. Mr. Sales, do you want to say anything else? I feel like we've these titles, and I guess I'm running the meeting as chair, so that one does a little more coordination with the agenda and signing off on some documents. The other two I feel like are listed and aren't necessarily doesn't mean a huge amount more of work.
Well, I think the treasurer will probably be entrenched with the finance committee. So
Yeah.
I think that's the only difference. A lot of housing authorities don't have a finance committee. So that's a little bit different here.
Yeah. Okay. So does anyone want to nominate themselves or others? And by the way, we tried a co-chair with Ms. Oliver, who I see on whenever the last round was, and it eventually turned into chair and vice chair. But honestly, I think, we can divvy up the work how we want, and then, the titles don't have to necessarily direct that work.
I'm
We
ashamed
have a, I'm sorry.
I'm ashamed of who all three officers are currently. Can you state that for me?
Oh, yes. Our current officers have left the board, except for myself being chair. I believe Ms. Oliver was vice chair and Ms. Talbert was the treasurer.
Yeah.
Could I clarify with some questions? Because while there may not be a lot of, I don't know, prestige in the titles, I think that those titles do help us run a smooth meeting and get through the process. And do we have some bylaws that talk about, like, anytime I've been on a board, we've had a nominating committee and things like that, and they've met and then they set forth a candidate list. So is there anything like that set up in the structure of this organization?
I'll just, in my, relatively short experience, there hasn't been for this particular group because it's only 7 and it was kind of more of a discussion and consensus kind of a thing. But we could work on that for next time. We should, given how I'm handling this, but
Oh, no, it's not about that. I didn't know if there was a structure in place, because sometimes that helps, with getting through.
I do know it is an annual, typically July, I believe it's the first meeting in July, or the July board meeting is when new commissioners would be coming on and we would do this. And we've postponed it, both by just forgetting to do it, but also I think in the midst of all the figuring out how to be online, it didn't happen. So, but typically it would be a 1-year appointment.
Are you interested in being chairperson again?
Me?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm happy to continue. I believe I would, so it would be till July. So I'm happy to continue. I don't necessarily want to continue forever because I feel like I wish I had more time to give to it. But I'm happy to stay on till July.
Are there term limits associated?
Again, a good question. I don't know the answer to that, but we each have a 3-year term. So
Right.
that would.
Mr. Sales, do you have any answers to that?
Give me a second. I'm going to pull up the bylaws right now.
Oh, so our bylaws. Okay, good.
There are bylaws.
Perfect.
If we were in person, usually we have a binder in which the bylaws were always slipped into the back of the binder.
I nominate Lisa Green for parliamentarian.
While I am flattered, I feel like I'm too new on this board, and I want to learn some more before I would take on that leadership role. Thank you.
And then she left the room. Anyone else have thoughts on this? I think Ms. Slaughter and I are on the same cycle where our three-year term is up this July. I need to double check that, honestly. Just,
You're correct, Betsy.
that's correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Oh, good, thank you. I just my brain is in Zoom mode.
Well, I would like to nominate Betsy for chairperson through the rest of her term.
I second.
Should we go ahead and do all of them? See if there's other nominations. Or volunteers.
Don't have any particular thoughts about it. It'd be difficult for me. I'm living away, and I'm probably more nervous about COVID than some people, and I'm just keeping a very low profile. And I am not particularly.
Yep. But I'm very happy that you're able to be with us. I know you've had internet trouble and all sorts of things, so I'm very grateful you've been able to join.
Betsy, I would serve with you as co-chair. I mean, just so that we can move this along. And I mean, is there any other nominations that I just want to make sure that I'm familiar with the process before.
That'd be great. I nominate Lisa for co-chair.
I second.
And treasurer, whoever is already interested in the finance committee might want to hold. I mean, if you're already or starting in on the finance committee, it might be a good fit.
You did say that they really don't have much to do, right?
Right. I mean, I think you would join the finance committee, but I mean, it's not like you're you're not coming in to be the financial director or something. You know, this is site on a board level, if that makes sense. So it's not, I wouldn't think a lot of extra time, except for the finance committee meeting.
Okay, well, I'm on that one, so I would do that. I would be willing to serve as that.
Nominate.
Great. All right. Second that. Okay. Any other nominations or volunteers? If not, you can wait till July and jump in. So, Mr. Sales, should we vote or?
Yeah, I'll call.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Commissioner Slaughter.
And should I clarify?
Yes.
I'm sorry, she said yes. We're voting on all three positions, myself, Green, and Dr. Henry. Okay.
Right. Okay.
Commissioner Goldblatt.
Yes.
Commissioner Osteen. Commissioner Osteen.
Yes. Are you not hearing me?
We hear you now.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Commissioner Green.
Aye.
Commissioner Dr. Henry.
Yes.
Commissioner Mayor Walker.
Before I say, I'm going to say yes, but I think that especially the chair and co-chair position, there should definitely be a resident in one of those seats, and
Yeah.
probably strive to always make sure that's the case.
I will not take that position at all. Then I will.
Well, no, I think that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying no one spoke up. So.
Well, I agree with you.
Mhm. But just like figuring out how not just to get people, to join the board, but how to make sure that they feel comfortable, have the space to, take on those leadership roles should be a goal of ours too.
Absolutely.
I agree. Are you okay? Should we move on with this and try for
I said yes, I just wanted to say
Okay.
that was my concern.
Okay.
Okay, Rucker. Sorry.
Okay.
Ms.
Okay.
Green? Yes.
So that motion passed 7-0.
I totally agree. I think we need to put in place something for leadership roles and to make sure that because this is about the residents.
Do we have the ability to amend the bylaws? Is that something we could put in the bylaws, that we always have to have chair or vice chair be a resident, or both?
Well, we always, as a board, have the opportunity to bring forth amending the bylaws.
Yeah, it would be great. Yeah, if we could, I wonder if that's something we could have on the agenda for the next board meeting, but I would be in favor of amending the bylaws so that
Yeah. I couldn't hear the end, but I think that's a great idea. And so what we need to do is set current bylaws around so we can look at them and update anything else while we're looking at them again as well.
I just sent the bylaws to all the commissioners.
Thank you.
You should have in your email.
Thank you. Okay. Let's move on to the executive director update.
I'm going to share this update with Kathleen.
Okay.
But I'll go first and then she'll talk about the annual plan. As of last week, we have new office space for the central office. Special thank you to the mayor and the city council for allowing us to occupy some city space for the couple of years during redevelopment of South First Street. I would also like to draw the attention of the commissioners to the TARS report, which is the tenant accounts receivable. It is like probably the first time in probably 15 or 20 years that the account balances are at zero. That's also a special thank you to the mayor and the city council allocating $80,000 of CARES funding to the Housing Authority to pay back rent. 134 families were directly affected by the assistance. We zeroed out account balances from old rent from March to present. So we currently have 2 families that still owe money. We've gotten one of the families in a payment plan that they can afford. And the second family we'll work with them to get in a payment plan. And those will be the first 2 families in the eviction diversion program. We have so all of my updates is going to be about reports that are in your board package. There are 40 new lease vouchers since August of the new vouchers that were forced out on the street. 49 of them have been leased. We anticipate another 13 of them being leased by the end of the month. I'm jumping around a little bit. We do have 2 new employees on the call tonight. Ayana Pointer is the new relocation coordinator, and Miss Mary Lou Hoffman is the new director of finance and administration.
Introduce themselves, John.
I think Ms. Pointer, are you available to introduce yourself really quick?
Yes, I am. Sorry, I don't have the my video showing, but good evening, everyone. I am Ayana Pointer. As Mrs. Sales said, I am the new relocation coordinator. I just joined the team on November 2nd. I look forward to working with and, interacting with everyone. Thank you.
The new finance director, Ms. Mary Lou Hoffman, has not started yet. She's expected to start December 14th. She is also on here, but I think she was having some video issues earlier. I don't know if she's going to be available to introduce herself, but she will. You'll see her at the 17th meeting. So that would be an opportunity for yourself. An update on the security firm. At a previous meeting, you all voted to award security firm to Century Force Security LLC. We had a meeting with them last week to talk about implementation of the contract. They did let us know that they plan to award the contract to a subsidiary of theirs in CentryCom Security. We were all a little concerned about that, but their justification is reasonable. They have two businesses. The insurance on housing is different from the insurance on all the other contracts they administer. So they have all of their housing going under one to try to lower the cost of the services they provide to other individuals through the other company. So it's a cost savings reason, but it's the same principle and the same employees for both firms. The new security firm does plan to attend the December 8th Safety Committee meeting. They will also be at the January Board of Commissioners meeting. We're working, actually next week, they'll be in Charlottesville to meet with the asset managers and do a site walk. So they have a better understanding of what the sites look like and some of the challenges they may have. They are also planning to meet with the Charlottesville Police Department. That meeting has not been scheduled, but we talked about that being a hot button item and it needed to be a priority on their list. They do anticipate hiring 2 to 3 Section 3 residents. So it will be a job training opportunity for some residents in our community to get employment with the firm. They're also open to hiring some of the current employees from Millennium, if that's an opportunity there, or if there's some staff members who would like to see continue working on the sites. And I think that's all I have.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
On the CARES funding, when you had said that the balance was 0 for the past due rent, is that funding that the residents will have to pay back? Is that a loan or is that a grant?
No, it was a grant. The city provided a grant to the housing authority and we provided a grant to the residents.
Okay. So that is not a debt that the residents now owe?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I have one question. The new security firm is open to hiring residents. Obviously, we would love every employment opportunity. Are there any concerns about anybody potentially being a security person in a complex or a neighborhood that they might live in? Is that anything?
I don't know if anyone else heard you, but I didn't hear you at all.
Really? I don't know what.
There you go.
What?
That's better.
I don't know. It all looks like it's working on this end. I'm a little concerned about the idea that residents would be employed by the security firm. Love the opportunity for employment. I wonder if there are any issues that we need to address where somebody might be a secure person in their neighborhood. Sounds good, but it also sounds like potentially for abuse.
Well, I think based upon the conversation that the previous meeting, there is some synergy around having the community police itself, having individuals in the community being able to oversee their own community. So I think this may be one step, but the security firm also has a responsibility of making sure those individuals are qualified for the position. And I don't know how likely it is that someone that lives in one site is actually going to be security on that site. they have multiple different sites that they could work them on, or they can work them on a non-CRHA site.
No, I'm good with that answer if nobody else has any concern.
Thank you to the city. I don't know if I can hold this up. What it's all the zeros. I looked at those and I was like, what am I looking at here? So that's amazing, and I really think that is very well, obviously very helpful for our families. So thank you for getting it done.
So if there are no more questions from me, I think Kathleen, can you do an update on the annual plan?
Sure. Hello, everyone. We've already had 2 of the public meetings on the annual plan. Let me pull something up really quick so I can share it. Some of the items that have been brought up at the meetings, top of the list has been safety concerns. Got a lot of questions about when the safety committee will start working on camera and loitering policies. And there's also been a lot of conversations, as Mr. Sales had talked about increasing lease enforcement. Lighting continues to be a concern, as I heard at the meetings. And there was also some residents who talked about having seen the maintenance staff fix lights and lights go out again. So they wanted to have some more conversations about possible protections for the lighting. And I think some of this will also be helped once we start having maintenance committees again, and we can go into that in more depth. There was some concerns, just as were mentioned just now, about who the safety company will hire. And, a lot of residents were expressing a hope that it would be people from their own community. So I think there's definitely some more conversations to be had there as well. There was we had a resident who had asked for more crime and safety information to be, brought up during the annual plan and attached. And that's something that we could also talk about on a safety committee level, just the best way to present that information. We talked a bit about the Housing Authority new goal that we were introducing to add to the plan this year of setting up a nonprofit arm, and just some of the opportunities for this to possibly raise some funding to have programs on all sites for youth of all ages, especially teenagers. There's a desire to see, we had a really great conversation at the 6 o'clock meeting last week about, and Audrey was such a great leader on this too, about setting up programs in the neighborhoods where residents would be trained to be peers and work in their neighborhoods and help with neighborhood crisis intervention. And I'm really looking forward to continuing that conversation. And grants that we could pursue to do this, especially once we had a nonprofit status. There was, a lot of conversations just about having people from the neighborhoods who have a lot of talents and skills, and how they could bring resources in. If we could bring resources in and provide some funding that, they could provide, a really solid resource for residents who are living there. A lot of it had to do with community building. There are still concerns, about us not having regular meetings with the police department. And that's something I'm hoping we can talk more about. I don't know if there's another meeting planned yet with the police department. If there is, I'd like to add that to the notes. We added an extra meeting to take a deeper dive into the goals with the resident advisory board, and that's going to be on December the 2nd at 4 p.m. And if any board members are interested in being part of that, please reach out to me and I can make sure and connect you to that meeting. Challenges around the dumpsters. I thought, just people don't seem to be finding the right place to put debris into the dumpsters and what we can do about that. Also, occasionally we have people dumping who don't live in our neighborhoods. And then we talked some about the capital fund plan. Overall, the thing I heard about the most were places for kids and teenagers to be, the parks needing to be updated, the basketball courts, and just spaces that were safe in the neighborhood with more lighting. I heard a couple times people wanted us to buy, and I know we have some too, some more wall light units and hang them up. We did a little bit of pre-planning too about the resident advisory board's going to help when we have our capital fund meetings this winter, so we can really get more feedback from residents about that. There's a need to improve more curb appeal in the neighborhoods, and I think there's a great opportunity to talk to residents during those capital fund meetings about what they would like that to look like. We also talked about access to lawnmowers and weed whackers and how we can improve that, which was another topic for the maintenance committee once that gets up and running. We had a resident ask if we would consider taking RAD out of the annual or 5-year plan. And I said that I would make sure and put that in the notes. And then we just talked about the need to have tools and standards in place for addressing language and reading barriers. And we've been talking about this a bit more. I know I'm really excited. Ayanna Pointer is doing some research as well with us using and partnering with FART, with Catch a Fire, to see if there's ways we can develop tools with that grant funding. As far as redevelopment, there's a real desire to see resident-led redevelopment continue, and some of the leaders that have evolved over at South First Street be able to become peers in other neighborhoods. That was another thing that also could have come under the 501c3 status if we're able to achieve that, because we could get more funding to be able to help some of the leaders at South First Street be able to, carry on in that position. We want to make sure the resident advisory board is part of the sustainability plan conversations. And there's still a lot of concerns about form-based code. It's been quiet, but a lot of residents are saying they haven't heard about it, but they still know it's going to come back on the table. As one of the biggest property owners in town, they're hoping that we'll be vigilant about that. I had a couple of people ask for paper copies of the annual plan, and I've delivered those. And if anyone else needs those, please let me know, and I'm glad to help with that. Let's see. So all that's really left is I'm going to be inserting in the notes from the meetings that I had with residents into the annual plan, as well as I'll have a sheet that will talk about the edits that are going to be made, and we'll be getting the signed pages as well from Mr. Sales and the board chair that will be part of the plan as well. And I'll be getting, after the meeting with the RAB on the 2nd, I'll be updating all that and sending it out to the whole mailing list, so everyone will have a chance to see it long before the meeting on the 17th. Sorry, I rambled a bit. Does anyone have any questions?
I don't have a question, but I will say this is the second time that I've heard like the peer-to-peer, which is, what I have been attempting to secure funding for a similar program, but it sounds like this one is on the way. And the statement that was made even the last time was that at the meeting that we had with the officers was that this is something that I should have known some way that was occurring, because I wouldn't have spent my time trying to secure funding for it. So I just want to publicly state that I'm going to step back from what I have been doing on my end to attempting to get something like that funded. And I haven't been able to connect with April Oliver yet, but if they need any assistance or want any assistance from me, then they can just reach out for that. And if there is something, if it's only just trying to figure out funding, I will be supportive as I usually try to be.
I would really welcome the opportunity to talk to you because there's so many moving parts and different groups looking at different ideas. And I just think it'd be great to just keep all the options open and see what residents would really want.
Thank you, Kathleen. And I know I read in one of the, I can't remember which report, it's probably this report, you know, and looking at setting up the nonprofit arm. Oh, I know, I think it was around, maybe it was in yours or Mr. Sales about the rent. As we continue, and I know a lot of the CARES funding ends December 31st. And one of these reports, it talked about the rental forgiveness program or the rental assistance program.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I was thinking, oh yeah, the rental assistance fund, yeah. I mean, how long does it take to get that set up? I guess I was thinking because the holidays are coming and maybe there's like a way to use that as to kind of advertise that as a giving opportunity.
I will say, so we were working on two different things, a rental assistance fund and a eviction diversion program that we were gonna, the goal was to combine the two and be able to provide education along the lines of finance and budgeting, while also setting individuals up that fall behind in rent on prepayment agreements that they can afford. And then having an incentive there where we have a pot of funds that we can use. So every time they make 3 current payments, we forgive one and we use the funding that's in that pool for that forgiveness. Because we wanted to balance it where we're providing some incentives while also asking them to provide some time to go through budgets and financing. We would like to pay individuals for their time.
Mm-hmm. Great. I mean, that sounds really good. I guess I'm wondering, I think that sounds great. I'm wondering for the nonprofit arm to be developed, is that something that will take, what I'm getting at is, can the board members help in any way? You know, I know we probably haven't done this before, but it's holiday and I know, you know, I work at UVA and get all sorts of, you know, give to this UVA fund that is then giving to someone else in the community. You know, they try to kind of consolidate or match funds or have their employees donating to things. And so I just wondered if that was something that we try.
You can certainly do that without having a nonprofit. We won't have a nonprofit within a few months.
Gotcha. Okay.
The board has to approve it and the city council has to approve it before we can even create one. And then it takes a while to write the bylaws and the structure and organization itself. So we're looking probably 6 months to a year from now of having one standing. Individuals and organizations can give to the housing authority now. It just, you won't receive a tax break on it.
Right.
But we certainly have individuals doing that. And we recently struck up a partnership with another organization, a nonprofit, to provide gift cards for residents that are living in public housing. And we pretty much figured that out last week and got the first round of gift cards this morning. So they're going to do 4 more rounds after this initial round from now to January. So
That's
organizations
amazing.
will donate. It's better if we have the nonprofit set up, but
Okay.
that won't happen for 6 months to a year from now.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Good to know.
Could I ask one question about the nonprofit? I know when I was help setting up a nonprofit, there's an opportunity for you to go, and I'm trying to think of the name of it. Kind of have an work with a nonprofit. They have an umbrella so you can accept the donations and do the tax write-offs.
I think we've done that before with Virginia Organizing.
Yes, Virginia Organizing.
The fiscal agent.
Yeah, that's fiscal agent.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that is an option, but we haven't stood up the program yet in order to do something like that. We've been focusing on taking care of the individuals we have in-house and the back accounts. And then we were nominated by the CBD Task Force for funding for a rental diversion program with the Housing Stabilization Coordinator and some funding for rental assistance, but for that model of incentivizing individuals that are paying based upon the repayment agreement. So in order to set it up the way you're talking about, Ms. Green, to get rent payments, we just need to talk with outside firm and start making those asks. But we have done that before. Before I went to the city council, I asked multiple different organizations about donating to take care of the back rent. It wasn't something that was very favorable for them.
Just thinking that a short-term gap solution, not to keep moving forward with that, but something for this time between now and the time that the nonprofit's set up is what I was thinking.
I think we can look into it and then get back with you at the next meeting, the work session on the 10th.
And then I'm happy to help. I mean, I know that you said there are other CRHAs in the state that have set up a nonprofit.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe they have bylaws and can give some ideas on shortcuts not shortcuts, but ways to set this up without reinventing the wheel.
Yes, that's certainly the case. I will say some are set up differently, though. Some are set up as more of a development, and some of them are set up as more of a resident-backed providing services, using the nonprofit to provide services. So based upon how the mission of the organization will determine how it's set up. Ms. Carnes, our council, set up quite a few of them, and she is used to the mission service model. So she may be a good point person to help us with the bylaws. And I think she also did the bylaws for the CCDC.
Thank you. Sorry, I lost my agenda. All right, shall we move on to the safety committee update? More questions? Okay. Ms. Goldblatt, would you like to give an update?
Sure. So since our past board meeting, we had an emergency meeting last week about safety concerns in public housing. And what we've heard from residents is that some of the concerns that Ms. Glenn Matthews had addressed, concerns about lighting is persistently a problem, but also residents feeling as though they don't feel safe, and that they also feel as though services that other city residents have, they don't always have access to. And so at the meeting that we had at the emergency meeting for people who weren't there, we talked a lot about, we heard from residents and what they're concerned about, and we talked about thinking about strategies that would lead to more safety that wouldn't necessarily be only over policing or only punitive strategies that might actually compound some of the problems. So we'll be hearing at tomorrow's meeting at 6 p.m. We'll be hearing from Mr. Sales and FAR about a joint proposal that they've put together. So I haven't seen that yet. I don't know what it looks like. And I'm also not aware of any future meetings planned with the police chief or with police in general, although those might be on the calendar. That's something that I haven't been looped in on, but they might be happening. I think one thing that as we look to thinking about some of the policies that residents want to have written up is, you know, a question about cameras and then loitering. I think it would be great for us as an agency to start to think too about ways to build in job creation and economic mobility. When Mr. Collins was talking, he said, you know, you don't hear about this stuff happening in Greenbrier because there would be consequences. I think we also have to think too about where there's economic opportunity in the city. And I think the Section 3 program, I think the Section 3 program is a really good opportunity for us to start to think about ways to provide job training and job skills wherever possible. And so I'm hoping we can have as many residents as are able to join the calls. You don't have to come to all of them. You can come for any of them. You can stay as long as you want. But I think it's really important for residents to, for us to hear as a board the concerns that residents have, but also for them to feel as though they have an active role in determining what they want their communities to look like.
Thank you. Any comments, questions? Okay. Let's move on to Mr. Norris. Are you ready for the redevelopment update?
Yes. So you all have the redevelopment report in front of you or in your packet. The good news is since that report was submitted, we have now finally received our building permit for South First Street Phase 1. We had already received the building permit for Crescent Halls. So in terms of the city building permitting process, we are now, we've cleared those hurdles, which is huge. And so once we have closed on the projects, we'll be able to get started on the construction side. So I want to thank the city staff and thank our mayor and others for getting us to this point with the building permits. I think the last time I spoke to the board, we were aiming to close on these projects by middle of November and get construction underway by the end of December. That's now been bumped back another month. So we're now aiming to close by middle of December, with construction hopefully to start by end of January. And that's mostly due to a sort of a last minute delay caused by some bureaucratic issues with HUD, but we're working through them. I'm happy to go into the weeds on that if anybody likes, but essentially it has to do with the way our disposition applications are being categorized in the final stage of the HUD approvals. And we just have to jump through a couple extra hoops to get the most favorable disposition approval. So that has bumped things back by about a month, but we're making progress. Give a lot of credit to Jeff Meyer from VCDC and our whole development team for working hard to get us to where we are now. But hopefully by January, by the time of the board meeting in January, construction will be underway on both of the Phase 1 projects. Phase 2 of South First Street, we are hoping to, we've had to work through some technology issues in getting virtual meetings set up with the resident planners, but those are all hopefully now resolved, and so that we can start getting those resident meetings starting again to finalize for Phase 2 of South First Street. And that's exciting to see that come together as well. So we have already started laying the groundwork for the disposition application for Phase 2 of South First Street with HUD, seeing how long it took to get Phase 1 approved. We wanted to get a head start on Phase 2. So that's underway now. We are in the final stages of negotiations with our general contractor to finalize the general contractor agreements and the pricing and their plans. Part of that conversation involves getting a little bit more specific on their Section 3 hiring commitments so that our Section 3 coordinator, Joy Johnson, has a clearer idea of exactly how many, or at least roughly how many positions and what kinds of skills and trades that they're looking to hire from among the, I guess, over 80 people now that she has in the pipeline for Section 3 employment. So the goal is to get as many of them hired as possible, trained and hired, phase 1 projects. So we're working on all of that, and I'm happy to ask or answer any questions anybody might have.
Are those Section 3 people in training programs at this point, or does the training have to wait until you know what positions are available?
That's a great question. So we did have 4 residents complete the first training program that we did with the city of Charlottesville, and we're hoping that several of them will get hired on phase 1. In addition, starting in January, we'll have the second round of city training. They call it the Trade Builders Academy. So that by the time those, we're going to be looking to place 10 Section 3 residents in that training program. Hopefully most of them will graduate, and by the time they graduate, things will be well enough underway that they can immediately hopefully go right onto the job site. There are, Ms. Johnson has also identified some residents who already have training, already have trades and certifications, and so they won't have to go through the training program necessarily to get hired. They might be able to go right onto the job site. And so that's part of the conversation we're having with the we will be soon having with the general contractors is what kind of training, what kind of certifications are they going to be requiring? To answer your question, some of them need to go through training and some won't.
Could you remind us what was, well, not maybe the exact date, but roughly what was the date of the disposition application for Crescent Halls and South First Street?
Well,
Just
yeah.
Understand why South First Street Phase 2 needs to get started.
Right. So we started inputting that information in fall of 2019. We completed all the information by January, February of this year. I guess February is when we pushed the send button on everything. We were promised a 60-day review and approval. It's now been a little bit longer than 60 days, but we're finally getting to the light at the end of the tunnel. So it's taken since February, I guess, for that review. We've learned a lot though in this first round. And so that's gonna help us get through it quicker next time, now that we know all the hoops we have to jump through and everything they're looking for and how to frame things in a way that meets with their approval. So the goal is to not have this next round take 9 months or more.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Norris.
Thank you.
Yes. Any other questions or comments for Mr. Norris? So if this is actually getting real.
It's getting real. That's right.
I have one question, but this might be a silly thing to ask, but I've been thinking about it. I'm sure you've been talking about it, but I don't know if you can give us a glimpse. If we remain with virtual and social distancing mechanisms in place through the planning process for other sites, do you have plans for how to try to really engage residents in that process if we are doing it virtually?
It's not a silly question at all. I mean, I think we have to be prepared for that possibility. What we've been working on phase 2 is to acquire, we have some unused grant funds that we're acquiring 15 laptops and getting the right software loaded onto them that we can use for the resident planners. These will belong to the housing authority, but they'll be loaned out to residents. And then staff from Bruce Wardell and Associates, who's the architect working on phase 2, will each week kind of upload new materials to the laptops and check in with the residents to make sure they're able to access those materials. We're also buying little hotspots, portable hotspots, so that everybody who's participating will have internet access. So I think our thought is that that same model could be applied in future developments. To get to your question, Commissioner Goldblatt, that in future developments we could, if need be, we'll have refined the art of doing virtual resident engagement on redevelopment planning. It's not ideal, but we think we've had a series of meetings to sort of think through what that will look like and how that will work, and I think we've come to a pretty good place, and we'll be refining it as we go along. So.
Great. And maybe we'll have both at some point. I mean, theoretically, moving into the summer, it'd be nice to have both really
Sure.
available for people. That's awesome. Okay. Anything else? And another, I'm saying it because it's in my brain. Another fundraising, opportunity would be definitely internet service for people who can't pay the monthly bill or don't have it. I know we're going to have improved opportunities for that coming in with redevelopment and what Dr. Bellamy had helped set up in terms of partnerships. But, just thinking through right now with, the kids at home with school and the hotspots and all of this stuff, that's like so much more of an essential need than it was before.
I think there's also CARES funding and grants for that right now, since we've got kids in school. Specifically for that. And I'm going to have to think about that. And I had a conversation about in the TJPDC about that, and I'm not sure if that's where it is or not, but I'm pretty certain. I know that there's a huge push now to extend broadband everywhere, since especially in the rural areas that there are folks that desperately need that for kids to be in school. But let me look into that and bring that back, because I'm pretty sure there's some grants or funding somewhere for broadband.
And the school is offering the Comcast package to any city school student family. And so they sent that communication out. So that should have been, any student and their family should know that.
Okay, good to know. All right, other questions or comments? All right, moving on. We're ready for another round of public comments. Let's see, we're on our list here. And by the way, Commissioner Osteen said his internet went out and he's somewhere on the phone with us. All right, we see Mr. Collins.
Hi, good evening. I got some children in the background, my apologies. Just a couple of comments on some things discussed tonight. I just want to put out a plug for the annual plan meeting with the RAB that's going to be on December 2nd, I believe. I think it'd be great if commissioners could attend that. I think, these sessions can be really helpful for setting a long-term strategy, but those long-term strategies aren't really any good unless we all kind of know where everybody's coming from. And I think it'd be a lot easier to use the plan as a strategic plan throughout the year. So feel free to hop in on those meetings. I did want to also say with the peer folks in public housing, I really hope there's not a desire to pull away from that. I think the mayor's probably done more work on this than anybody to this point. It would seem like a mistake to pull back, because I'm not sure a whole lot is in place. And, if anything, it's a great opportunity for collaboration. Certainly, if there's already a push for funding for some of this stuff, there's definitely not a need to pull back. the idea of the nonprofit is a really interesting idea, and I wonder if we could one up you and say, you know, that might be an opportunity to have residents on a nonprofit board along with commissioners. I know it might take some doing. Sorry. To make it, you know, not have conflict of interest, to make sure housing authorities' interests are represented, but that would be a really cool idea. And then I think it might be worth also just sort of considering how does that relate to the other nonprofit associated with redevelopment to receive the big donations, and just make sure there's not like any conflict there. I haven't had a lot of time to think about it, but it's worth thinking about. And then lastly, I just wanted to clarify. So FAR's efforts on community-based strategies for safety really is in its sort of infancy. We have had conversations with helpers and as a group about what our approach needs to be. And basically we're currently just trying to reach those folks site by site who really have an interest and are showing that they want to do the work to have a community-based approach and identify what those approaches might be, because it's going to be different for each site. We have some ideas of and some examples of successes in other communities that have really taken years to pan out. You know, we don't have a specific proposal right now beyond we're committed to community-based, resident-based approach to improving safety, and that starts with working with the community and seeing who's going to do the work, and making sure we're a resource for making that all come together. So we don't have a specific proposal for that. We have included some proposals in Mr. Sales' safety action plan that will be reviewed on Tuesday. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. I'm trying to see if anyone else, would anyone else like to speak this evening? Mr. Gathers.
Good evening, everyone. Don't really have much of anything. Brandon pretty much covered everything just now. Just want to wish everyone happy holidays. Everyone, please be safe. I am still a little concerned and then a little on edge about the new security team coming in. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see how that all fleshes out. So just happy holidays to everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Gathers. I'm wondering, and maybe in the safety committee, it might be worth the, well, or maybe even an anonymous way for residents to express Millennium staff that they've been very happy with, if there's that ability for the new security company who might want to be recruiting from Millennium. Just throwing that out there. Okay. Other comments or from anyone really? All right. Then we have reached the end of our agenda for this evening. It sounds like many of us may see each other tomorrow at 6 o'clock. And I believe the link should be on our website, and there is a password to get in.
Yeah, it's on the website. It's also on FAR's website. So there's lots of places you can find it. And in fact, Mr. Sales, would you mind? I don't know who can do it. Can it be posted to Facebook? I'm sorry about the passcode. I have no way of getting the passcode removed. It's an automatic thing. But yeah, so it should be. But it's always the same passcode. Once you have it once, it's always the same for every single meeting.
Could someone please send that to my email?
Yes, I'm very happy to do so.
I'm not a Facebook person.
We'll get that on Facebook tonight.
Thanks.
And Commissioner Slaughter asked for an email as well.
Yeah, for an email as well.
Yeah, I'm happy. Yeah, I can't copy the Zoom link while in a Zoom meeting, but I will.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you everyone very much. Oh, and I also wanted to mention, we had discussed various committees. I'll send that list back out so we can talk, we can start to coordinate with CRHA staff, and maybe we can get those, like the goal could be to have an actual consistent date and time starting in January. Give us a little time to iron it out, but if we could start the new year with some kind of, consistency to all of these other committees as well. Hey, Ms. Johnson. All right, I guess we need a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
I second.
Mr. Sales, could you do the roll call?
Yes. Commissioner Slaughter,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblatt,
Aye.
Commissioner Osteen, Commissioner Green,
Aye.
Commissioner Dr. Henry,
Aye.
Commissioner Mayor Walker,
Yes.
Chair Rucker.
Yes.
Motion
Okay.
passes.
All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you all very much. Hi, Joy.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
You turned your camera on. All right, good night, everyone.
Happy holidays.
Good night. Happy holidays. Good night.